Do you know who this is? This is Selena Quintanilla. Selena was a famous Latin singer known for some of her top hits like Dreaming of You, Como la Flor, and Amor Prohibido, which in English translates to Forbidden Love, which many of us have danced to if you've ever been to a Latino wedding, and even like my aunt, after her divorce. Being from Texas, Selena was known as the queen of Tejano music. She touched the hearts of millions worldwide with her voice, smile, and presence. Her music, catchy. Her dancing, sexy. But there was something else that was unexplainable that made people fall in love with her. I was one of those people. I had all the CDs and the posters and knew all her songs by heart. I was super annoying. If you ever walked by my room as a kid, all you would hear was her hit song, Beady Beady Bum Bum. If I was happy, sad, excited, or bored, it didn't matter. You know why? Because only Beady Beady Bum Bum mattered. My poor parents. Out of so many entertainers, why was I so emotionally connected to her? When I think about it now, I know exactly why. It was her authenticity. Selena had no problem sharing her goofy personality with her fans, which wasn't the norm for female entertainers in the early 90s. Selena didn't put up an act for anyone. She was who she was. To me, Selena's brand could be represented by these 5 words: humble, charismatic, driven, trailblazing, and authentic. She's a bigger star now than when she was alive. Selena continues to live on in the hearts of her fans. This quote from famous artist Andy Warhol describes her best. We all die. The idea isn't to live forever, but to create something that will. And that is exactly what she's done. So, let's start by asking ourselves, what's your personal brand? What are the words that come top of mind for yourself? What are people saying about you, and why should you care? Each and every one of us is a personal brand, like it or not. Your personal brand is what attracts others like you to your circle. It's what makes others fall in love with you. It's also why others may dislike you. It's your magnet. What are you attracting? I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but this is important, especially in today's world. Well, let's start by using me as your guinea pig. What's my personal brand? Let me help you. Smart? Yeah, check. Handsome? Check, check. Humble? Maybe not that one. I am a proud Mexican and entrepreneur. I graduated from the University of Southern California with a degree in accounting and a CPA designation. I'm also the CEO of a nationally ranked real estate business in Beverly Hills and the author of a book on personal branding. I live the American dream. I'm beyond grateful. But these are the outer layers that make up my personal brand. Let's get even deeper. What's that inner part, that fire that fuels it all, my innermost secrets and past experiences that drive my brand to shine or not? I'll get into those shortly. Some of us are being truly who we're meant to be, while others are wearing a mask. I hid behind my mask for many years until I shattered it into a million pieces. Is there something you don't feel comfortable showing the world? Any secrets you could think about? Are you hiding behind your mask? In the next few minutes, I invite you to consider your personal brand. Is it authentic? Does it serve you? Does it allow you to fulfill your purpose? And if it's not something you're proud of, how to go about rebuilding it? I had a reason for wearing my mask. Let me take you back to when I was 7. I was in 2nd grade when my teacher, Miss Schill, handed me a dustpan and a small duster and instructed me to sweep the entire classroom floor on my knees. While she sat on top of her desk, looking down at me, she said something I would never forget. You shouldn't tell anyone you're Mexican, Ivan. If you do, no one will respect you. You'll never get the opportunities in life you want unless you're okay working as a gardener or a mechanic. You have light skin. Tell people you're Italian. That was so hard to process. So many different feelings came over me that day. For a couple of seconds, I felt a rush of fear, and then anger, and then hurt. I didn't have the tools to process what was happening. I was 7. You know, my mom and dad would always say that I was perfect, that I was funny, that I was smart. But Miss Jill, who I looked up to, she told me a different story. She told me I was broken, and I believed her. She told me I wasn't good enough, and I believed her. She told me that if I didn't lie about who I was, I would never amount to anything, and I believed her. Miss Jill set the foundation for me to start living an inauthentic life. I began to rebrand myself as a completely different person without even knowing what that was or what that meant, without knowing the future mental health repercussions this would have on me. And let me tell you, the therapy bills are long, and I have the past toxic relationships to prove it. I talk about this situation as a personal branding pivotal moment because that's what that was. That one comment made me forget everything else that I loved about myself, and it raised a skyscraper of insecurity, doubt, and fear that overpowered everything else. I became the Burj Khalifa of 123 Ivan Way, the tallest skyscraper in my personal universe. For this conversation, let's look at a brand like a skyscraper. The foundation is made out of the principles, values, and belief systems that were either set by you or someone else. Each floor in that skyscraper represents a story, event, or incident that reinforces that belief system. After Miss Jill set the foundation for me that being Mexican was bad, I began to build my first floor. I looked at my father, who was a janitor, and my mother, who was a seamstress, and I thought to myself, Miss Jo's right. It's right here at home. So the inside of that floor would keep the secret that my mom and dad were blue-collar workers, while the outside would tell a different story. I told people my dad was an Italian accountant and my mom an Italian business owner. I lied. Shortly after, I began to build floor number 2. I noticed that people who did speak Spanish in my community were gardeners and mechanics. And let me please put this out there, there is no shame in hard work. But for that moment in time, Miss Jill was right again. So the inside of my floor would keep the secret that I was fluent in Spanish, while the outside would say, sorry, no hablo español, floor by floor. I just kept finding more proof that Miss Jill was right. This was not the only incident that reinforced my self-defeating foundation. When I was in 7th grade, 12 years old, I was a total mess. But what 12-year-old isn't, right? I was this whitewashed kid wearing Abercrombie and Fitch and lying about who I was to the entire world. During this time, I also realized I started looking at boys much differently. I was attracted to them, and it scared me. My parents were very religious and taught me to be the same. In this world, you're not allowed to be gay, especially in the early 90s. Actually, even now, depending on where you live in the world or where you live in the US. In some places, you can't even say the word. Plus, I was pursuing a career in music. I had a record contract. I had to be extra careful. And I thought I was doing a good job until my music manager, Craig, pulled me aside. Hey, Ivan, get over here. I'm not sure if you're gay or not, but if you are, don't you ever come out of that closet. If you do, you'll lose everything and anyone who's ever meant anything to you. That includes your family and your career. Plus, nobody likes gay people. They're disgusting. For some reason, I couldn't get Miss Jill out of my head. That conversation was a trigger for me that laid down a new floor in my self-defeating skyscraper. I'm not supposed to be gay. I looked around in the music industry in the 90s and I couldn't find any successful gay performers. Craig was right. So the inside of my floor would keep the secret that I was gay, while the outside would say I wasn't. Year after year, I just kept adding more floors that reinforced to myself that I wasn't good enough. Now, by the time I was 25, I was building my real estate brand while I had this self-defeating skyscraper in my shadows. Coming from the eastern part of Los Angeles and working in the Beverly Hills area, this skyscraper made more sense than ever. It kept reminding me that in order to be successful, I had to hide the fact that I was Mexican because there weren't any successful Mexican realtors in Beverly Hills. And also hide the fact that I was gay, which, all right, okay, makes no sense because I started in a West Hollywood office, the capital of the LGBTQ plus community, across the street from the Rainbow Room. Hello? Rainbow Room. I was lying to clients and fabricating an entire new persona. You see, 123 Ivan Way was working for me until it wasn't. By the time I was 30, the skyscraper I had built was beginning to crumble from the inside. That foundation that had held it standing for so long was broken, and so was I. So what did I do? Look for a therapist, maybe talk to some friends, or talk to Jesus? No. I self-medicated like a good little boy with alcohol and cocaine. I used to lie to myself and say it was natural because I had been grown from the ground. I used to think that this was the only way to manage my problems, to look the other way and pretend like they weren't there. Well, one night, after a night of binge drinking and cocaine, I almost accidentally overdosed. I hit my bottom. I felt defeated, embarrassed, and ashamed. The shame became so intense that I took it out by drinking more alcohol. At this point, there was nothing left for me to do but to surrender. Surrendering was the first time I was able to truly be honest with myself. I realized I had betrayed myself. I couldn't use any of those tools and belief systems I had developed in order to deal with the pain. I had to let go completely and start rebuilding myself from the ground up. This honesty gave me the courage to face my biggest fear, me. My journey made me fully understand the foundation of my skyscraper. I had to walk into every floor and face it. I had to reframe how I experience each moment in order to better understand myself as a person. So I began by walking into floor number 1, that second grade classroom with Miss Jill. I acknowledged what happened, and I forgave her for her comment. Because in forgiving her, I was able to forgive myself and set myself free. Then Craig forgave him, and so on and so forth. It was in this journey that I became aware of my authentic brand, the true Ivan Estrada. This tall, dark skyscraper that kept its lights off and windows closed, it had the potential of being rebuilt into something beautiful. But for this, I needed help. I needed the help of a therapist, a support group, and my family. I began by researching my ancestors, and I went back to Mexico to learn about my culture and roots. I found out more information about my grandparents and the struggle my parents had to face as Mexicans in the US. The racism, the inequality, the hate. And let's be honest, this isn't over. I still get this comment all the time. You're Mexican? You don't really look Mexican. Then I'll politely respond with, oh, really? What is a Mexican supposed to look like? I also began to learn more about my LGBTQ plus community, my community. I met others with similar stories to mine, so many hard but inspiring stories of courage and strength. They helped me to love myself again. I can't begin to tell you how my life changed. My real estate business skyrocketed and my self-confidence grew every day. I was finally showing up authentically. I was no longer running away. Instead, I was focused on my dreams, goals, and ambitions. Because being authentic allowed people to trust me and for me to trust myself. This allowed for the lights in my skyscraper to slowly illuminate floor by floor. The windows started opening up. You see, we all have skyscrapers that we've built over time. Some we're proud of, and some we're not. Some are built on solid ground, and others are falling, and we just aren't ready to accept it. But if we do, we allow ourselves to be courageous and face them, to rebuild them. Next time you're adding a floor to your skyscraper, ask yourself, what kind of floor are you adding? How does it serve your overall brand? Or like what Oprah Winfrey says, fulfill the highest, truest expression of yourself. Make sure the outside of your skyscraper reflects the inside. In the end, what I learned is that the things we think are holding us back in life, that's where our superpowers lie. It's inside those skyscraper floors where you can find it. So if you're looking to be authentic, find the things you feel are holding you back. Is it not having a college education, cultural shame, addiction? Once you find them, be courageous to face them. I invite you to change the way that you look at those obstacles and reframe that experience. If you take anything from today's talk, remember to always set your own foundation. Don't let anyone else do it for you. Be the architect of your own life. Don't let anyone else give you the blueprints. And remember to always brand with purpose. Build your skyscraper so high and mighty based on honesty, courage, and determination. Don't leave your lights off or keep your windows closed because you don't want to call attention to yourself. Because calling attention to yourself is what builds a brand that people remember. This makes an impact. So what are you waiting for? Stop living in the darkness. Today is the day. Light up your skyscraper and open your windows. Let me see you. Let the world see you. And just like that little kid dancing beady beady bom bom in his room, being his true authentic self, I invite you to look inside you and find yours and come and dance with me. Woo!